Well, let's go through the timeline because I think it can tell us a lot and also fill in a little bit of a backstory that I wasn't aware. Obviously, I saw you do the Bahamas conference with Salt, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I think it was September, it was announced that Sam was buying 30% of Skybridge, which again surprised me. And then I know you went on a trip to kind of the Middle East to start introducing him to people. Can you talk me through some of those events and how and why they happened? And again, at the same time, you're hanging out and spending a lot of time with 30-year-old Sam, and I'm just wondering what your impressions were then.
So I'm not somebody to revise history. I liked Sam. I thought he was a brilliant young man, and I thought that he was onto something that was going to change the exchange business. We have two real everything exchanges in the United States: the New York Stock Exchange, and then we have the CME. The New York Stock Exchange created in the 1700s, the CME created in the 1800s. Sam was developing a 21st century stock exchange. He was starting, or global everything exchange. He was starting with crypto, but he was going to migrate himself into stocks and bonds and eventually tokenized private equity and real estate and et cetera. And it was a very, very compelling story. He also had 12.5% of the cryptocurrency markets. I sat on his trading desk in the Bahamas. I saw the volume coming in through the computer systems. I saw the spreads that they were making in the cryptocurrency markets. He had 12.5% of all of the cryptocurrency market. So he was the second largest exchange. So I want everybody to understand the magnitude of this. So I thought he was an absolutely brilliant young man. His dad was a tax professor, mom a compliance professor. He was preaching compliance and a strict adherence to compliance. He had said before the Congress that he was one-to-one and that assets were not commingled. There was no evidence in his data room when we did our due diligence that any assets were commingled. He had audited financials. Of course, he created an accounting backdoor that allowed him to do that. What I will tell your listeners is that if you want to create fraud, you can create fraud. Okay, there's no question about it. You can be Bernie Madoff in the most regulated industry in the world, create fraud. You can be Theranos, food and drugs, most regulated industry in the world, right? Securities and food and drugs. You can create fraud. Those are regulated industries where fraud was created. This was partially regulated, mostly unregulated, and he perpetrated this fraud. Now, the good news for US-based accounts on the regulation side, because the US is so strictly adherent to regulations, I believe those accounts will probably be made whole once the bankruptcy is resolved. It may take 1 to 2 years, but it seemed like the American side of his business was being run appropriately, as far as we can tell. But you're asking about my interactions with him. Every time I met with him or interacted with him, I came away thinking, wow, I think Sam is smart, but he may be perhaps smarter than I originally thought he was. He knew a lot about a lot of different subjects. He was a student of American politics, American sports. He had a very good understanding of trading, the algorithms and processes involved in successful arbitrage trading. And so there's no doubt that this was a very, very smart young man. Obviously, I didn't see the troubles that he had. He was somewhat peculiar. He doesn't have your EQ, for example, or perhaps my EQ, but neither does Mark Zuckerberg. And so when I looked at him, my old boss, Lloyd Blankfein, said to me, after I made my remarks at the Yale event, he said, yeah, people are going to pick on you now. They're going to demonize the victims of his fraud. They're going to make it look like you guys were stupid. But let's face it, he looked like Bill Gates in 1971. I laughed. I said, wow, you're really dating yourself, because I thought he was the Mark Zuckerberg of crypto. I didn't think he was the Bernie Madoff of crypto. But since you're bringing up that Middle East trip, which was quite faithful, I took him with me to the Middle East. We visited Riyadh. We visited Abu Dhabi and Dubai. He met with senior leadership there, both political leadership and business leaders. I think they were impressed with him. I think many people were about to embark upon due diligence to raise another tranche of capital for FTX. And FTX, notwithstanding what happened with Alameda, Brian, I'll maintain to this day a clean run FTX is a profitable business. Now, maybe he was exaggerating profits. I'm not saying that he wasn't, but he had a exchange and a franchise where lots of trades were going on. And so maybe it would have been modestly profitable or less profitable than we all thought, but it seemed very profitable. An honest person could have made a very, very good living off of that business. And so there's tragedy there too, because I can tell you, when it became clear that there was a huge problem there, once him and CZ started fighting. And again, this sounds weird to be grateful for this, but I'm actually grateful for CZ, because when we were in the Middle East, I wasn't in these meetings, but through hearsay, I heard this. Sam was lambasting and denigrating CZ. That got back to CZ. You know, the Middle East is a small community. London's a small community, so is New York. And CZ said, okay, you're lambasting me to regulators and business colleagues here where I live. I'm going to sell the remainder of my tokens that you gave me upon the sale of my interest in your company. And CZ helped him start that company.
Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.